Okay, everybody, my name is Port Cunningham, and I am not here with my distinguished co-host, Frank Oliver Beans, because obviously he doesn't check the event calendar, or maybe he, I don't know, doesn't have access to it, but whatever, he'll probably wander in a bit. Hopefully he will. But anyway, we're here with my good friend, Tater Thom, otherwise known as Thom Cantrall. We've been old compadres for quite a few years now, and we're joined by a new friend of the show, Mike Scott. How you doing, Mike?
I am doing great tonight. Beautiful evening, and thanks for asking. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you.
So tonight we got a pretty special show with the three gray heads here.
Well,
I expect deep wisdom.
I use glasses to read, and outside of that, I don't wear them. So I'm not used to seeing my head, so I didn't know it was gray. Thanks for telling me that.
Well, you've got some though, you right?
Yeah, I do have some gray hair.
If you got hair, I mean, if you don't have hair, you wouldn't care what color it was.
Right. That's true. So,
but anyway,
it's good to see Thom again. So,
yeah. So you're a high school teacher, right? So what grade do you teach?
Well, I teach mostly 11th and some 12th grade, and the little rural Southeast Missouri school I'm at. I'm also the athletic director, and I also drive a school bus for them. So,
oh wow,
yeah,
jack of all trades.
So I go pick them up, then I teach them, and then I take them home. So that's a little bit of everything there. It's like they have a hard time finding bus drivers. They pay pretty good stipend to do the job. So everything. I used to do a lot of coaching. I really don't want that grind anymore in my life. So I serve as the athletic director, just taking care of all the coaches and so forth. So I really enjoy it. And we're still a kind of a conservative school district. All the stuff you hear about on the media, we really don't deal with down there. We just still teach them, and if they need a paddling, we give them a paddling.
Oh, good. Well, that's the way it should be.
Yeah. So
that's the way it should be. So what did you coach football or something?
Oh no. My coaching days was baseball and some basketball, and I actually used to kind of look like I was a basketball guy back at one time, but I never have coached football, but it's mostly been baseball and basketball.
Well, that's cool.
I coached football, and I don't think I've ever done anything that was as personally rewarding as that was.
It really, and I still get a personal reward working with the kids every day, and it's really, they talk about today's teenagers and this and that and the other thing. 95% of them are still going to be wonderful adults and wonderful human beings, and just a pleasure to have some kind of impact in their lives. They just don't get the headlines.
Beautiful.
Oh,
beautiful.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So
they brought something like that up to me recently, and I said, you got to remember, the only ones in the headlines are the 5% on either end.
Right.
You don't see the 90% that's in the middle. They don't ever report on those. But it seemed like when I was coaching it, every year I had parents come up to me and tell me what a difference it made in their kids. They were having trouble keeping them in school, but then all of a sudden they learned they could succeed. They could learn and do, perform, and wow, that was great. And then they were part of something, and it just made all the difference in the world. But I did find I liked coaching football a lot better than I liked baseball, because game time in football, the crowd's way back there, and baseball, they're right in your back pocket.
When I coached baseball, I could make a move, and I could hear all the dads. I can hear every one of them critiquing the move. What's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with this guy? I'm just like, just trying to block it out and ignore it.
Yeah. Well, you had a good experience, because I guess I wasn't one of your students, Thom.
I know
you had quite the experience with one of my big hairy mentors making some recommendations to you, didn't you? Why don't you tell
Yes.
Mike? Why don't you tell Mike about that?
Oh, Mike, I was going up to BC. We were just starting our work with the glyphs and learning that area. And I knew that he was in line to be taught, but they were having a great deal of trouble getting his attention and keeping it. Brian tends to wander a bit, okay? we were having great fun, but he wasn't doing too well, okay? All of a sudden, one night I'm sitting at home and this voice comes, "Get him under control." Melted the wax out of my ears.
Well, you got to remember this. This individual is over 12 feet tall and probably at least 1,200 pounds. Thom, what do you think? I mean, I've seen him. He's huge, gigantic.
He's huge. Yes, he is. Big white fellow. And boy, did he! Yeah, he was some upset. And so I got hold of Brian and told him, "I don't know what you're doing, but please stop it." But
yeah, we don't want to. We don't want to go any further with that, but
yeah.
I bet you were shaking your head like a dog with fleas for about a week.
I was. Oh, well, tell us what's going on in Missouri.
Well, I was going to ask Brian, speaking of glyphs, did you get some of those pictures I texted you of glyphs earlier today? Did you get those on your text?
Did you send them to my phone?
Yeah.
I can't get them off my phone because I've got a flip phone.
Oh,
I get people to send them on Messenger generally.
Okay,
that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I can't do that right now.
Yeah,
but
he's still back in the 90s.
But you showed a picture on your page of a circular glyph the other day. I don't know if you remember doing that.
Do you want me to bring it up?
Well, it was a circular glyph made out of weaved sticks or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of the ones I texted you was that same circular motion that was drawn on some condensation of a greenhouse by a Sasquatch, by a Bigfoot. Exact same circular deal. And that was we found that a couple of months ago in a on the wall of a greenhouse that had condensation on it. So it was, and there was no way that a human did that, because the only human that was there between the times that it appeared, the couple days, did not do it. So
yeah.
But I thought one of the things, and Thom and Lynn Gasper kind of really in the past year put me on to looking for glyphs and stuff like that. And I'm looking around, my goodness. But the thing is, the glyphs that I'm seeing in Southeast Missouri are the same things that you guys are sharing pictures of in Washington.
Yeah.
Yep.
Little circular thing, the A glyph, I had a human stick figure made for us this winter. So
yeah. Well, I can bring some glyphs up if you want later and see if you have the same thing, but it doesn't. But the thing with that though is, I always tell people, is that the meaning will not be the same for you as it is for me. The meaning of the glyphs is all personal to the individual they're connecting with.
But I have a situation. I'm working with a young man recently he's 2 counties away to the west. He's in the kind of the eastern region of the Missouri Ozarks, which of course the Ozarks is one of the hotbed of Bigfoot activity in the country. Southern Missouri, northern Arkansas. And he's kind of at the eastern region of the Ozarks, and he has a family that has kind of taken refuge in and around their farm. And they the family that we know of consists of mom and dad. The oldest kid's probably about 7.5 foot tall. Then one about 4 or 5 foot tall, then a baby. And then there's an older one, probably a grandpa, I would guess, that's in that clan as well. And they started out, they were helping themselves. These guys have got 3 greenhouses where they have a little small mini farm, and they grow and produce and so forth, different things in the greenhouses. They raise poultry. And started out, they would be missing items in the greenhouse.
Yeah.
You know, tomatoes would be picked, strawberries would be picked, but not all their strawberries, not all their tomatoes. And he wondered what was going on for the longest time. And then he saw the Bigfoot one day. So about 9 months ago, he reached out to me, since I've, this little show, Understanding Bigfoot, things like that. What do I do? Do you have any idea what I should do here? And he also reached out to Carter Bouchard at the same time, from more of a national level up in the Kansas City area. And
yeah,
I guess we were kind of giving him differently about the same advice. And I said, well, are they hurting you? Are they threatening you? They do it. What are they cleaning your farm out? No, they're just taking a little bit here and a little bit there, and I still have a profitable farm. I said, well, I'll leave well enough alone if I was you, because go lock your greenhouse door and they'll tear it up, or things of that nature, as long as everything. So, and this went on for quite a bit. Then finally, I got out there this winter and started, just through building a relationship. He let me kind of using his place as kind of a little observation area and research, call it what you want to, just to go out and observe. We set up a gifting bucket away from the greenhouses, and they seem to take real well to the gifting bucket. Very, very, really the things that really intrigued me, because I've never gifted before. But so I would do apples and a little jar of peanut butter, and I got these little sweet and salty peanut granola bars, and they really like those bars. And the ironic thing is, I just put them all in the bucket, put a lid on the bucket. They come, they'll take the lid off. They'll take the lid off the peanut butter jar. They take an apple at a time. They take a couple of the granola bars at a time. They don't just take everything at once. They just, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here. But when they get done with the wrappers, they leave the wrappers they just stick them up into the tree limbs nearby, to where when my buddy who lives in the farm, when he'd go up every couple of days and check that bucket, he'd just collect the tree limbs, the wrappers, and take them to the trash can, throw them away. So they're not just throwing these things all over the forest floor. They're just leaving them in a strategic area where we can see them and dispose of them.
Awesome.
And when they get done with the peanut butter jar, they'll bring it back and set it next to the bucket. Yeah. There's that peanut butter jar right next to the bucket. And the other thing we noticed is that once that bucket has been identified for them, there's no raccoons getting near there. There's no possums getting near there. None of the other animals of the forest are getting anything out of that bucket.
Yeah.
They just, and occasionally we bring some other things in there that they like and stuff like that. So it's very, it's very interesting and then that's when we started, and I'd get up there. That's about an hour and a half drive from where I live. So I get up there about every 2 to 3 weeks, check the bucket, help refill it. We talk about what's going on, and then that's when I noticed the different glyphs they started leaving, near the bucket for us, and just very, very neat the way they handle that artwork, and it's just it's been very rewarding just to be able to do that. And Thom has been on me. to spend the night solo. And I did go up there, Tom, a couple of weeks ago and do a solo, spend the night outside, but I had very little activity that night. So I'm going to go up and do it again here probably the next couple of weeks as it's a little warmer than that. Just do a little solo and spend the night up there in that area and see, because they'll come into the greenhouses and things like that and see what kind of visuals I can get.
And don't forget to talk to them.
Well, I talked to them.
Yeah. Just keep up a running conversation with him, even though it's one-sided to begin with. But
yeah.
Well, Thom and I, our experience is both that they can hear you whether you talk to them audibly or telepathically, so they will know what you're saying. I was going to suggest one thing. I would like to put my 2 cents in. If people are having the Sasquatch people come and take, a lot of their stuff, like taking more than their share, simply suggest to them, like, and this has happened and with good results from people I know and from, stuff I've learned and personal experience, that you just say, I don't mind you taking half or take your share, but leave some for me. And
well,
they generally will respect that.
Interesting you say that because Kyle's he's in his upper 20s and he kind of runs the farm and his mother helps him with it. His dad has a day job and he is pretty much Kyle's the one who has the activity and like that juvenile is about 7.5 foot tall. Started out, he'd stay about 25, 30 yards back, peek around a tree and just shadowing as he's out working the greenhouses, working but now he's to the point where he pretty much stays within almost a touching distance, standing side by side, shadowing him while he's working this. And he's kind of built it up to that. But the one they had the problems with was that old grandpa figure. And he just seemed angry and he'd throw things at Kyle and and then chucked the little, small log one time and hit him in the back with it and kind of bruised his shoulder. And Kyle's mom just chewed that thing out one side up, one side down the other. And she said they hadn't had any problems. She goes, we hadn't had any problems with him since. And I said, you're not welcome to do that here. You guys come in, you can have some, share some food with us, do this, do that, but you cannot do that. You cannot be throwing things. And they said they hadn't had any problem with him since.
Yeah. Well, especially if they're hitting them, like sometimes they will throw little rocks and stuff just to get your attention or to say, hi, I'm here kind of thing. But yeah, if they're hitting you, then that's
this is different because I've had them playfully throw things at me before. And I didn't feel like it was the type of throwing that says you better get out of here. I'm mad. No. So I was like, hey, just a little messing around, like they'll throw a little paper wad in school or something like that.
Yeah, like hi, I'm here.
That wish we'd just fall off the face of the earth and go away. We've destroyed their habitat so much, and they just don't want us around them. And it's generally the older generation that's true of too. And the family group that you described is very, very common. Probably half to a third of the clan in that area, and you'll find the children are about 7 years apart, 6 to 7 years apart.
Yeah, most of the reports I hear out of Missouri are pretty tame. People have pretty chill interactions with them, and
that's the way they are. I mean, if you want to remain hidden, not have trouble with authorities, the last thing you're going to do is attack people and draw attention to yourself.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Plus, I think they have a respect. They respect nature. They respect people, sometimes begrudgingly. Mm-hmm. They're not monsters like a lot of us are.
One thing I've observed. I live in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, in the north part of my county, about 15 miles from me. There's about a 2,300 acre conservation area that's where I go do my observations. That's where I first discovered, hey, they are real and they are here. And when there is somebody that just popped into the screen, it looks like, but
That's Frank Oliver Beans.
Okay,
Or
that's
my
the
co-host.
beans half of it. All right. The one thing that I discovered was I forget where I was going with that.
Yeah, well, that's I do that too. That's called
I
Oh,
called
I
old
got
age.
distracted.
tell me about it.
Yeah, well, while you're thinking about it, because it'll probably come back to you. I mean, I have my own opinion on this, and I'm sure Thom does, and Mr. Beans has, but I think that a lot of the reaction. I mean, how much difference is there in the Sasquatch people from region to region? I think a lot of the behavior is in accordance with how people treat them, if they're treating them with respect and you know, whatever. I mean, like Thom said, some of them don't want us around, but they're generally not going to cause us any harm. But I think they're very similar, probably in a lot of the different regions, but it depends on how you interact with them. If you're going around half cocked and shooting guns off your left, right, and
Well,
center and disrespecting them, they're going to treat you probably accordingly.
I had a guest on my Understanding Bigfoot show about a year ago, and he was from just across the river in Southern Illinois, Shawnee National Forest area, and but that, you know, his idea in the woods, looking around, is guns a-blazing, and most of his encounters were aggressive encounters. And somebody commented in the comments, man, I wonder how you know, he has all aggressive encounters and Mike doesn't have aggressive encounters. And you know, I think a lot of it is how you go about it, because but here's where I was going to go with that in the conservation area. I'd go up there during the firearm deer hunting season, not to hunt, just to observe. And I'll sit up there at the little public parking and little primitive campground area. And I'll sit up there, and as the hunters are coming out of the woods, you know, it's just barely dark. They're getting out of there at dark. As soon as one hunter gets to the parking lot, about 70 yards behind the hunter, you hear Yahoo! And then when the next hunter, 15 minutes later, gets out to the parking lot, about 70 yards somewhere back in the woods, you hear Yahoo! And these hunters are oblivious to that. They don't. But I'm sitting there thinking, every time a hunter gets out of the woods, he's letting everybody else in his clan know that another hunter out, another hunter out, another hunter out. Okay, now we can freely roam the woods. And that goes back to that respect we're talking about. They know that humans hunt, and hey, okay, we'll let them hunt. And then when they're done hunting, we'll go do our thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't have seasons nor bag limits.
Right.
And,
So,
yeah.
Hey, Mr. Beans, how you doing this evening?
Hey, everybody. I'm late.
hello there.
How you doing, Mike?
I am doing fine. The
I
beautiful.
had a question for you.
Yes.
You got a show, right? That show?
Understanding Bigfoot.
Yeah.
We've been doing it about 2 years. We've had about 36 to 38 episodes, 3 of them involving Thom Cantrall. That shows kind of how desperate we were, but no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're really you have to be desperate to have him on 3 times.
Well, we I got a co-host, one of my co-hosts, Susan Perez. We had him on there once, and she said, "You got to get that guy back on there. You got to get that guy back on there."
Yeah, Thom knows a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you is like in all those shows you've done, how many people confess that they were friends or family with the Sasquatch, or that they were neighbors with the Sasquatch and the Sasquatch wasn't a problem, compared to the people who were afraid or hunters or researchers? So do you know?
Well, I had part 1 and part 2 with Kenny Busby, who lives with them in Harmony.
Wow. You have to
I
explain,
had a,
you have to explain how that works. What do you mean he lives with them? Like they're
well, on
HOA
his
property?
property.
Ask him that. Ask him
He's
that
got
after he.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
he's got 12 of them named, and he even has audio of one giving birth. So
Wow.
he's got a pretty close relationship with him down in the Arkansas Ozarks. I've had a couple shows with Thom. Thom was probably the first one. But actually the first one was Lynn Gasper. He was the first person I had on that actually had very positive interaction. Didn't live with him, but when he went out, had been having positive interactions with him since he was 6. And Lynn was the one who put me on to Thom. And then Thom, and then I started seeing, that's when I first started seeing a different side of, because we go out in the woods and as soon as we know they're in our vicinity up until that point, we'd leave. Okay, here they are, they're here, let's get out of here. Here they are, they're here, let's get out of here. And and these guys are the ones that taught me. And it was about a couple years ago, I think the first time we had Thom on, these guys are the ones that taught me that you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. But I've had but Busby, as far as having them on his property, David Parker on his property in his vicinity had a harmonious relationship, and those were some of the first ones that kind of, I think Parker, Lynn, Thom, kind of showing me that side of them existed when I otherwise thought it wouldn't.
So let me ask you. You said before you got this understanding that when you knew they were around, you get out of there. How did they let themselves be known? How did you know they were around? What did they do?
Well, my journey started. My journey. Well, my initial interest got started when I was probably like 12 years old. I checked the book out from the library called On the Track of Bigfoot. And it was written back in the 70s. Of course, I was 12 years old. It was I'm 58 now, so that was in the 1970s itself. And I read that book. Everything in that book was up Pacific Northwest where you guys are. And it was Jerry Crews stuff. It was Bob Gimlin film, Patterson Gimlin, stuff like that, and had that Albert Olsman story in it, the one that and as I read that, I thought, well, there's got to be something to that, but it's all up there, and I just ignored it. And even though they'd come out with that Momo the Monster craze in the early 70s as well, and I was familiar with that, we all just kind of laughed that off, and we weren't even thinking Bigfoot at that time. And all that, fast forward for years, you get in high school, you're into sports, married, kids, sports, everything, coaching, and never really had time for much outdoors or much to think about this. And then these TV shows started coming on. And I started watching these TV shows. And because I remember that book that I'd read. And I thought, there's probably, even though a lot of the TV shows are a bunch of phony baloney, Hollywood throwing their influence in on it, there's still that one element in there that there's got to be something to this. Not everybody's making this stuff up. And then my sister had a sighting in 2017, and she had no idea. And then when she told me, and Thom knows this story, she told me, well, I think I saw a Bigfoot, or describe to me what you saw. And she gives me a description that could be anything else. And that was up in northern Missouri. She was driving on the road, going across the state, and trying to get it verified. I was talking to somebody, and he said, hey, he says, you're down there in Cape Girardeau. He says, why don't you look around, see what's down there? I said, there's nothing down here. I'll be wasting my time. There aren't any. I'd love to go look around, but they're not down here in Cape Girardeau, down our area. I said, probably over the Ozarks. And then all this is kind of coming into play. My son was finishing up the youngest of my two kids was finishing up his athletic career in college, played baseball at Murray State University. And when he graduated, when he got done playing in 2018, he's like, hey, Pops, we got to have something we can do together because all this stuff is now over with. And he says, what if we took up hunting? I'm game. Let's take up. Yeah, great. Let's take up hunting. So the first time that he went out and we went up to that conservation area because it was public and we didn't have any private land access. He went up to do some squirrel hunting and check it out. December of 2019. And he gets back from his hunting excursion with a couple squirrels and he's cleaning the squirrels. And he says to me, he says, Dad, he says, I saw something else up there that I think you might be interested in. I said, what was that? He said, footprints. I said, what kind of footprints? He says, big footprints. I said, you're serious? He said, I'm serious. And we're both big people. I'm about 6'5", he's about 6'6", and we both wear size 15 shoes. And he says, they swallowed my boot up. I said, do you remember where you saw them? He goes, yeah. He goes, I can take you exactly to where I saw them. I said, well, let's get these things clean. Let's go up there and take a look. So we went up that Sunday afternoon and looked, and we saw the prettiest trackway, probably about 6 steps altogether, about a 17.5-inch foot, 8 inches wide, 5 toes, a left foot, 5 foot later, a right foot, about 5 foot strides, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Then it kind of got into the harder soil and you kind of lost track of it. And it's just a progression of it. He's like, do you think it is? It's got to be. What else is it? What else would make these? And I said, I didn't think they were here. And so it wasn't too long after that they shut the whole country down for COVID. You guys all remember that. March of 2020, everything closes down just a few months later.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to stay home. Nothing's open. Can't do anything. And I thought they can't keep me from going back up to the woods. The woods aren't closed. I'm going to go up there and find out what's going on. So I would go up several days a week, take hikes, walk around. Every time I'd go up, I'd see more footprints. I'd see more evidence. Then you start hearing the up on this ridge, somebody's whooping at me. Up on this ridge, somebody's, you're knocking a tree. And as soon as I'd hear that, I'd leave. And then I'd go back. And then as soon as I'd hear that, I'd leave. And then I'd go back. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to stay. They're not, just see how this goes. And so anyway, that led into what I'm doing now. So going out all the time and investigating and helping other people out. I just talked to a guy the other night that he had an experience that to him was a traumatic experience. He had an encounter 40 years ago, over not too far from where this guy and his farm is over there, about an hour and a half from my house. And he had something happen, just an encounter, a visualization, a face-to-face type deal, and it scared him out of his wits. He's never been back in the woods since. and he found our show, and he got in contact with me. And I talked to him the other night, and he was telling me, he said, "Now, it wasn't an aggressive encounter, it wasn't a scary encounter, but it was to him because he didn't have, when you don't know, and there's something 12 foot tall, looking at you, kind of giving you the eye that you didn't think existed."
That was one of the things in writing my last book, Sasquatch, The Proof.
Yeah,
No, I beg your pardon. It was a Sasquatch face to face.
the face-to-face
That-
one. Yeah.
Struck me very much was how many of those, there's 32 encounters in that book. How many of them people were talking about how absolutely terrified they were, that they were too afraid to move. They just were frozen in place. And all it was doing was standing there looking at them. And really nothing scary about the encounter at all. It's the fright is in their own mind and how they're perceiving what's going down there.
Yeah. And so I'm talking to him, and we're having a conversation and talking about him coming on doing an Understanding Bigfoot show, and he said to me, he says, it's Mike, he says, I need to go back there. He says, will you go back there with me? I said, yeah, I'll go back there with you. He says, all right. Then he proceeded to tell me, he's okay. He says, I've got this, what kind of high-powered rifle he has. I said, no. I said, leave that at home. I said, we'll go back to that spot. I said, but leave that stuff in the truck or leave it alone. We won't need it. And when I got there with me through the influence of guys like Thom a couple of years ago, tell me you don't have to, and because we would go camp, we'd camp, another guy and I would camp, and we'd say he'd come out there, we set up a perimeter, game cams, and all this other stuff, and then one day I said, let's put all that stuff away. Let's put the game cams away. Let's keep the firearms in the vehicles. Let's turn the lights out. Just us and them. And that's when we start having them come into camp and visit us. And interact with us a little bit, little whistling back and forth and little communication. I had one that I communicated with on a regular basis for some time, but yeah, that's when we started having that, when we put all that stuff away. And that's been so consistent with what I've heard a lot of other people kind of say. And that's what I told this guy, no, we'll put that stuff away. We'll go and hopefully have a good interaction and help him process what he dealt with. But you talk about your face-to-face, Thom, in the book, and one of your guests in that book became a guest on Understanding Bigfoot. I actually did a 2-part with him, and it wasn't too long ago either. It was Rick Taylor. And
okay, you had Rick on. That's right. Yeah.
And the account that I read in that book with Rick Taylor, with the lady down in Oklahoma, Carla. Mm-hmm. And what I didn't know that I got from Rick is that he had plenty of activity with Sasquatch up until that night.
Right.
And still, that night for him eventually became more than what he wanted to deal with.
Yeah, it did. And you, prior to that encounter that evening, you did not mention mind speak or telepathy to him in any way, shape, or form. Okay?
Yeah.
Until he's standing there and they want me to move away from you. Why do you have a gun in your pocket?
But you can tell the sincerity in Rick's voice the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Because we did a 2-part show with him. He started getting into that story, and I stopped him. I said, no. I said, we're going to save that. We're going to do a whole show just on that event. That's going to be part 2. Just hold off for 20 minutes. But yeah, so that's a lot of people will have that first experience, and they're just but they're incredible beings.
They are. And I wish people would understand that they're another us, basically. They're just more intelligent than we are.
The more, that's the conclusion I'm coming to, the more I'm around them, is they're more a people than they are an animal. And
that's right.
And they really highly disciplined, very, very strong family units. Their family units are a lot more functional than the human family unit has become. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I talk about. is, they mate monogamously and they mate for life. Okay. They do not acquire things. They're not acquisitive. Okay. They do not defend a territory. Yes, they live in a particular area due to the food, but wherever the food is, that's where they're going to be. And
Right.
like here, where we have the salmon runs, there may clans down on the river taking salmon at any given time, all in the same spot. Okay. So there's no territory defense, no things to defend, no, they understand morality and they understand, mating for life. And if you take this out of our history, how many wars have you avoided?
Oh yeah.
99% of our wars are over one of those items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's just my teacher, the first conversation I had with him, second conversation, was over that. He just put me at ease immediately with that. I know that you're having trouble balancing what you're learning from us with your priesthood. Know this, we have the same creator. The difference is, at a point in history, you stopped adapting to your environment and started adapting your environment to you. And we did. We moved indoors.
Right.
Now we don't have to talk ridge stop to ridge stop. We're talking across the fire, so we don't need telepathy. And in the human brain, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There's still vestiges of it, and we could regain it. But he told me flat out that they have no power that we did not at one time have.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I was just wanted to mention, you mentioned, Mike, the Albert Osterman account.
Right.
And I think that might be, it was documented by John Green, a guy from British
Okay.
Columbia here, a newspaper man. And I
As
think
of
that
your
might
neck
be
of the woods.
that might be the finest account of all the many accounts, because of the fact that, he described the Sasquatch people as we know them today to a T, 30, 40 years before people even considered them or
Right.
Even knew anything about what they look like or whatever, except maybe, some of the First Nations or the indigenous peoples.
Right.
But I mean, that description is just amazing. And he even described their hands, their behavior, and everything was like perfect, wasn't it, Thom? That was a great account.
It was a great account. And John Green did an excellent job in preserving that account as well. And Brian and I had the opportunity to meet and spend the afternoon with John one time before he passed away. And that was time well spent.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is that, like with Thom and myself and some of the people you've obviously interviewed at this point, you don't really get to know them unless you have a relationship with them and they want to work with you in some way. Because John Green, right up to his death, he wasn't even really sure if they existed, and the same with Rennie Del Hendon at the same time, because he didn't have that kind of relationship with them. But the work that he did with all the stories and preserving the Albert Osterman one, and I think Ruby Creek was another one, and just countless of tales, is just like is priceless. So he certainly, people like that certainly had their place, but there's
and there's another author that you might want to look up and read some of his stories, and that's Vance Orchard. He was a newspaperman in Walla Walla, Washington, and wrote had a column there and wrote a lot about Sasquatch encounters including an interview with a lady who homesteaded outside of Walla Walla and the edge of the Blue Mountains, and their relationships on their homestead with the Sasquatch people. So if you can find his book, it's very well worthwhile.
I've
The
heard of
name
him.
is Vance Orchard. Yeah.
I've heard of him. So let me ask you, Mike, you've interviewed, like you said, you interviewed some people who have a relationship with them and where they habituate their property or whatever. So what
Right.
is the difference between those people who have that kind of understanding and familiarity and close contact with them to the people who are going out and, you know, casting tracks and trying to set up game cams and stuff of that nature? What is the difference between their accounts and their understanding, do you think, generally?
I think those people have a better understanding because they're getting closer interactions, closer relationships with them. And you know, we can go out and cast, you know, you can go to an area. You know, I could take anybody on any given day up to this conservation area in North Cape County, and I can 100% guarantee there's 2 spots I can go where I can show you tracks.
Right.
It's you know, they may not all be the same size. One day they might be 13-inch tracks. One day they might be up to 24-inch tracks, or there might be 2 or 3 different sizes of the same, you know, different beings go. But I will find tracks on those
Yeah.
2 areas because those are travel ways that they take in traveling. But when you have those interactions, and when you habituate, the problem with me in the conservation area is I'd get up there once every 3 weeks maybe, you know, and you know, and then get up there and I would have consistent interactions, but you're just not up there often enough to really get to know them. And those people that I talk to that have them on a regular basis, like the family I'm working with over here in Madison County, Missouri, they have a consistent weekly, you know, Kyle's having some kind of interaction with one of them.
Yeah.
Close interaction, visual, you know, hey there, you know, he's filling the wood stove in the greenhouse. He's filling the wood stove in the wintertime to keep the greenhouse warm. And all of a sudden he hears the greenhouse door open. He turns around and looks, and there's, you know, the big kid standing there looking at him, you know, smiling. Hi, here I am.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, and that type of thing. He's having those kind of interactions. He said the other night, it wasn't too long ago, he sneaked up, he tapped him on the back shoulder, and then took off. He goes, by the time I turn around, he's already about 30 feet away.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know,
They're fast.
And they'll hate, you know, the people having those kind of interactions, but they're showing no physical threat. You know, they're not here to, you know, not here to hurt anybody. And obviously they could if they wanted to. And then there are these people that and where they want to go into the woods with their firearms and at night and go trudging around and got their little headlamps on and as I'm like, you're not gonna. I try to explain to them that's not the way to do it. You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are you gonna stick around if a guy's coming after you with a firearm? No. but we've had, but the show's Understanding Bigfoot when it came about a year into what I was doing up there, the pandemic. But about a year into that, one of the gentlemen down here was doing a outdoors podcast, mostly on fly fishing. And like you guys, we got a lot of Ozark streams down there in the Ozarks, good trout fishing and things like that. And no salmon, but a lot of trout and rainbows. And the he would have guests on, they'd be talking fly fishing on his show, and they would start bringing up encounters they had in these rural Ozark streams that probably were Bigfoot related. They weren't quite sure. And he says, well, he says we need to he says, to get somebody on here, he says, that knows what he's talking about on Bigfoot. And I vaguely knew him, and he knew kind of what I was doing. He's like, would you come on my show and talk about this stuff? And I'm just like, yeah, sure, why not? I knew very little at the time, but I thought he didn't know that. So we got on there and we talked for an hour about what I thought I knew about Bigfoot, and helped, his audience. And he got back with me a few months later, and he says, hey, he says, I just want to let you know, he says, man, he says, that show that I did with you, he says, it's been the most heavily watched show that I've done. He says, and people are messaging me saying, when are you gonna get this Bigfoot guy back on there? And at that time, in those 3 months had passed, I had gotten some more information in some of my searchings and researchings, and start to even get a better understanding and more interactions and things like that. So I thought, well, I got new information to share. Yeah, I'll come back. I said, I'll come back on your show. He says, no, he says, do your own show. I think you should do your own show. He said, I'll produce it for you. And Thom knows Sean. He's met Sean a few times. And he's I'll produce it for you. He says, I think people get a kick out of it. And
Yeah.
I thought, well, what do we do? What kind of show would I do? Now, at that time, that's just a couple years ago, I wasn't out on YouTube searching all these shows at that time. The only couple shows that I'd seen on YouTube that had anything to do with Bigfoot was Barb Shoop's show. And I thought was great. And then you had these shows like Dixie Cryptid, Sasquatch Chronicles, some of these that you'd catch here and you'd catch there. But somebody would get on and he would just read a script. He'd just narrate a script. They'd show an hour of scenery and they narrate a script of what somebody sent to them. And that's nice. That's a good story and everything. But I got to thinking, I thought, what if you got those people on themselves and shared their, actually got it from them instead of me reading it. Got them to share their story, like what you're doing, like what your show does. Yeah. And that's what I want to do. Okay, what are we going to call it? We're not going to call it Finding Bigfoot because we already found him. We're not going to call it Hunting Bigfoot because we're not hunting him. What are we going to call it? How about Understanding Bigfoot? We're trying. They're out there. We're trying to get an understanding of what's going on with them. Then everybody come in, share their stories, and we collect everybody's encounters, and we kind of put all the pieces together and start getting a better understanding here and a better understanding there of what is going on in their world. And so that's how that was born. And I get to where I think, and actually, Michael Harrell sent me a note, either commented on one of the shows or something like that about a couple of months ago, and said, what you're doing with your show is appreciated because it doesn't sell as much as all the hyperbole and all the other stuff does, but it's very much appreciated with what we're doing. And I appreciate, I don't know if you remember sending that or not, but I do appreciate you doing that.
Yeah,
because once in a while I think,
you weren't framing them as monsters, and if you don't do that, then you're going to have some good content.
Yeah, right. but less viewers. But I
less
think
viewers. And I've got a buddy here in Missouri that's got a very, very popular show. He's got multiple thousand subscribers. Everything. I've done some documentaries with him. And he's been on my show, but he kind of the lean is the monster effect. A lot of people love what he's doing, but
then
we'll have conversations. I'm like, I'm not going there with it. I don't because he'll say, you be careful going out there. You be careful going out there unarmed or go out there by yourself. He says the missing 411 stuff. He said, I'd hate to see. I still was, I really don't think they're out to get me. I think if they're out to get me, then they got me. So
They would have got you by now.
yeah.
I got to tell you a little story about David Blighty's Missing 411. Of course, David wrote 2 really good books prior to that on Sasquatch, on his research in the Hoopaw area. And so after he wrote his first 411 book, people are trying to equate that to Sasquatch. And he tried to tell people it has nothing to do with Sasquatch. This is I was a police officer for so many years. He was with San Jose, California Police Department. And this has nothing to do with Sasquatch. It's a totally different subject. And I had a person tell me, no, he wrote about Sasquatch, so this is about Sasquatch too. Even though he said it wasn't, and this fellow knew more about it than he did. Yeah. And so I just had let it go. You can't convince people like that. But
No.
one thing that TV show Bigfoot did do, it made it okay to talk about. And that has helped our jobs tremendously. Prior to that, the only time you saw Sasquatch or Bigfoot mentioned in media was as a joke.
Right.
You know, it was very difficult to get a straight interview without it being turned into some kind of a joke. After that show was on a few years, then people started taking it more seriously. And I wish I had $1 for every conversation I've ever had that started with, I've never told anybody this, but. You know,
Right. Right.
now all of a sudden it's okay to talk about it because Bobo said it's okay, so it must be okay.
Well, they drew that type of attention to it. Those shows did, and
Yeah.
I didn't learn until I started getting out there myself in the last 2 or 3 years. And boy, those guys are going about their investigations all wrong. But it is,
Oh,
but it is,
absolutely.
it is for an audience, you know, for a TV audience to try to get more audience and stuff like that. But you go back to the 411 stuff. I've been people like the missing. I said, I don't think it's Sasquatch related. I really don't. It goes back to what Thom said. Why would they be abducting people out of parks if they want to be left alone?
Yeah.
You know,
But
they
I
want to
think
start party.
there was Sasquatch there. You figure how many people they say they get taken out of parks every year? So 20,000 or something? How many? Is that the right number? Or is it 200,000? I don't know. I think if it's 20,000 people, that means there's 20,000 reports coming back from the woods, and there's just no way you're going to have 20,000 reports without some Sasquatch being seen. So Sasquatch around, they want to see what's going on, and if there's kids involved, you know, the Sasquatch, they want to see what's going on with the kids. So
yeah.
Well, I think I think personally, I think it's got a lot more to do with our worldwide human trafficking problem. But
absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's not just worldwide because the point what it points to is these guys up here.
Yeah, I'd be much more afraid of people in the woods than Sasquatch.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I personally had experiences where they have protected me, watched over me, told me they were watching over me, and actually been rescued out of the woods on one occasion too. So they, you know, they're like really high beings, and they're really noble, and they're really loyal to people that they connect with. So let me ask you, when did you realize that you were dealing with something more than a monster, or did you ever think they were monsters? Did you ever have that mindset? Yeah.
Oh, I don't know that I mean, you know they're big. I guess I underestimated actually how tall they would get or how big they would get. You know, you're thinking top out 8-9 foot, but we I never really thought in my mind, monsterish.
Okay.
Because as I because my encounter started with footprints. Hey, I know they're here. And then it started with, distant vocalizations, probably from the day watchers, within a close proximity. And then it started with, being out there at night and realizing, hey, there's probably about 6 Sasquatches right now within a 25, 30-yard radius of me. And they're communicating with us, they're in different ways, but based on the sounds that I'm hearing, I know that there's 6 different areas where I'm hearing the sounds. So there's probably, and it's everything kind of come gradual. So then you're like, if we're having this type of interaction, I'd say within the first year, probably time, I guess I'm graduating from monster to, if we're having this kind of interaction, they're not the monsters that are out to get you. And that's what, and it's hard to convince people that. It's hard to really convince people that they think, oh my goodness, but I discovered, I saw a picture of one on Google Earth in my area that the Google Earth map said he was 13 feet tall. And when I put that scale on him on Google Earth, I thought that can't be. They don't get that tall. And then somebody, more experienced person with them says, "Oh yeah, they do. The adult males will get that tall."
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. But then the biggest tracks I've seen are 24 inches long, and that's which would indicate probably somewhere in the neighborhood of that height. And but it's really it was kind of a gradual thing for me. But you just realize that they're not the monsters people portray them to, and then you find out that there's, the more you get into it, the more you find out, especially with these glyphs, there's so much more to these guys that they'll communicate, they'll send messages, and there's so much more to them than that's the kind of thing that separates them from being an animal, in my opinion.
Yeah, and
animals don't do that stuff.
And their vocal or their audible language too.
Yeah,
defies an animal. So do you understand any of the glyphs? Do you understand what they're saying to you at all?
I just assume. I don't know. Like when we saw the human stick figure, right close to that gifting area, my interpretation was they're probably letting us know, especially Kyle, since he lives there and he's there a lot more than I am, that hey, you guys are cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are cool.
Well, yeah.
The A that was in that area, it could be maybe like alpha male, maybe Big Daddy is saying, "Hey, thanks, guys," something like that. I'm not getting a clear cut. You're just kind of estimating. The circle thing is the one I got a hard time figuring out. But it was interesting that you had a circle with the wood. I have a circle on the condensation on the greenhouse wall.
Yeah.
I put that out there in a couple Facebook pages to kind of get some interpretation. Maybe I knew, and some of the people kept saying they're like a Ricky symbol, and then you look that up, and it's kind of similar looking to some kind of ancient Japanese artwork that has some type of spiritual connections or something like that with it. But
that can lead you down the wrong path, though. I think
it
has to be between you and them. Like,
but
literally,
you gotta be careful when you're going down those, like you said, those paths. I don't know what it would have to do with ancient Japanese anything, but there's got to be a reason he's doing what he's doing.
Here's the thing: if you can come up, if you even just imagine a meaning, and you say, "This is what this means," I think this is what this means. because this has been my experience. And they will start leaving you glyphs according to your understanding of what it means. And it'll start making sense that it means that because of the circumstances, how they leave it and stuff. And believe it or not, this will stretch your mind or whatever. But I've proven to myself, and they've proven to me, that they already know the meaning of what you're going to come up with years before you even do. They already know what it's going to mean to you before you even formulate the thought. Does that? I know that sounds crazy, but it's absolutely true.
And that is why when a glyph is left, that is left for you, you have no trouble knowing what it means. It just pops into your mind right there, because they know how your mind is working, how you view things, and that glyph will remind you of that thought. Okay,
Yeah.
and it'll take time to do that, but that's the way it works.
Like I had a Y glyph, and I was one of my most common glyphs, and I never came up with a meaning for it until one day I said, that means man, Sasquatch connected. One prong was man, one was Sasquatch, and the shaft is connected.
Okay.
The very next day, they left me one leaned up in the campground. That let me know that they got the message. Then I'm starting to look through my pictures or whatever of glyphs that I know the meaning to. And I've noticed there's that damn Y in there, and it's all perfectly aligned with the message that I understood. It was all about, like, say, my wife and I are connected. We are connected to you. You're connected to the clan, and you just start being able to read them and understand what they mean. And like Thom says, sometimes you'll look at one and it'll just like it just comes to you like thought placement, or immediately what it means. But
yeah.
I would suggest, if you want to get into glyphs and start playing around with them and leaving them some, just start getting your own meaning for them and just see what develops from there. Right, Thom?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I remember,
first of all, design a glyph to represent yourself.
Yeah.
And let them know that's what that is.
I remember the first time when we first put the bucket up is in early January and I basically I just got a bucket, brightly colored white bucket with some red on it, and a red lid. And when I set that lid on the bucket, I just took two little sticks. I put an X on there. Just put an X on there. I just put it. I see a lot of X's in the forest, right? A lot of trees made into X's. Put a little X on their sticks. When they removed the lid to check out the bucket, obviously the X came off of the lid, but they placed the X right at the foot of the bucket and kept the X intact. Just kept that intact for us and off the lid, but they didn't mess it up. They still kept it down there as an X. But I think they're showing, probably Kyle predominantly because it's his property and he's there all the time, that they have a very positive connection with him, and probably will do what they can to protect his family and to protect their interests there. They got there because his family had lived there for some time without any kind of activity, and what they told me was that the federal government on one of the nearby they call them Ozark Mountains, but you guys out there in the state of Washington, British Columbia, these things are 12 to 1,500 feet above sea level. They call them the mountains, but they're not really what you guys know as mountains, right? Yeah. But one of the nearby mountains, the federal government bought that property on that mountain, several thousand acres, and clear cutted a bunch of it. I don't know what they're doing there, but they cleared it off. So I would imagine that when they showed up, a year and a half ago or so at their area, taking refuge, they probably got chased off that mountain, just to find a place of refuge. And that explained why the old man was angry. But but anyway, they've been kind of there ever since. So
here's what I'm pointing out to you, Mike. Like I can read a lot of these, and these are some of the ones that they left me. So I understand some of the, the message behind them. Here's some of our favorites, Thom?
Yeah, absolutely. That first one if you tell me that that's not a work of art,
What, this one?
no, the
Yeah,
first
that one there is interesting.
That one,
This is
yeah.
this is the first one.
Yeah.
Well,
that's-
it just
that's what I
shows you their
mean.
heart, and it just shows you their heart and their caring, because
Well, what-
Yeah,
not
but
only did they leave me a message, they presented it on, they framed it with
Yeah,
like with Kara, they put a little piece of moss on there, the fern, which
it's
probably
a
means
work of
something.
art, yes.
It is a work
Yeah.
of art.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I won't get into too many of these, but I mean, seeing as you're into glyphs,
And
So
look,
that's a
there's something that's interesting. The word glyph as pertains to these was coined by the white-haired boys there and I with our study back in 2012, 2011 we started that, 2013. somewhere in there.
2012, yeah.
Yeah. And prior to that, you never heard the word glyph. You never heard these spoken about. But
Yeah, that's something
Randy,
that's something we're pretty proud of, because
Yeah.
it seems to be more and more common knowledge, and a lot of people are starting to have their experiences with them.
and we
Now
learned
there,
it from
now there's one.
too.
They can use anything they want. Like this represents
I
my
love that one.
yeah. I mean, look at that figure 8, and
yeah.
oh, there's one of my guys. But anyway, I don't want to bore you with this. Just more. But
No.
anyway, yeah.
One thing that Thom has mentioned that, and it goes back to the spiritual aspect of it. He said we have the same creator, and I wonder if these crosses and these, like one of yours kind of had that little Christian fish symbol. I wonder if those have anything to do with the spiritual aspect of a connection or something like that.
Well, the fish
I
symbol
think
for
that's
me,
a good question.
but the fish symbol for me represents my connection with my wife. Like I said, it's
Okay.
all personal.
Okay.
And there's no doubt about that. But doesn't mean it's
Right.
going to mean that to anybody
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
As a
But
matter
I'm
of
just-
fact, it won't mean that to anybody else.
Right. So, but I just often, because you see a lot of, especially with the tree structures, and I see a lot of X's and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of
Well,
crosses.
the X
Yeah.
almost universally is welcome, a welcome friendship sign. The cross, they wouldn't use that unless they were addressing an individual, because they don't follow Christ. That was other part of that same conversation. We know who Christ is. He was the savior of mankind. My next question was, and not for our people, do your people have a savior? And that's not for you to know at this time. So I hear a lot of that in dealing with them. But so yes, they do use the symbol, but they use it when they know that it means something to us, and they use it so that we will understand what they're meaning, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. The other thing with some of these glyphs too is sometimes they will leave a message that there's a message personal to you, and it's like a writing. Other time it's almost like a pictogram or whatever, where they'll draw what they saw you doing or experience, or like the stick man, for instance, could represent you. So I mean, there's different ways that they utilize them.
Mm-hmm. Or
But,
sometimes they just say, I go now, you go too.
Yeah. But like I said, I would suggest that you make your own little glyph, just like an M for Mike or whatever you want. It doesn't matter what it is; it's your intention that counts. And leave it someplace where you're interacting with them, and and then that gets it going back and forth. Like I got this little guy up here. I'll leave him a message. He'll leave me a message. I'll leave him a message. He'll leave me a message. It goes back and forth, and like we're communicating back and forth. And that's possible for anybody. I've suggested it to other people, and it's happened. Kind of put the intention out there, right?
Yeah.
I think you're on the right track there, Mike. If you're looking for a spiritual connection, or I read this quote just a couple of days ago. It said, "There's nothing on this earth that God did not create and that we do not need." And that's just struck me as like, we need the trees, we need the rocks, we need the water, and there's something about the Sasquatch that human beings need. We need that, and they need us. So that spiritual connection, I'm not even sure that's a spiritual connection, but
Well, you definitely you can learn and the and as someone who believes in the creation, when people ask me, well, where do these things come? They come from outer space. They come from. I think they're like everything else, part of God's creation.
Yeah,
And
I get this. Well, they weren't talked about in the Bible. I said, how do you know? Tell me what a behemoth is. Mentioned in the Bible. We don't have no idea what it is. What's a Leviathan? We think it's a big fish, but we don't know that for sure. That's just what we've assigned it to. So what's that? I went through one time and found 30 different animals named that we have no idea what they are now. So how do you know
right.
it's not in the Bible?
So, and then how do we know, without trying to make it too much into a Sunday school class, how do we know that the actual Bible that we read today was intended to be the entire Bible?
That's right. Read today was put together by a group of people under the direction of a king.
So anyway, the more the more you study, the more questions you have.
Absolutely.
Right?
Christ actually made a quote from the Ramayana, which is a Hindu scripture. So sort of like the Old Testament for the Hindus.
Right.
There's actually a quote that is a famous quote. He said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed,
right.
You can say to the mountain, come, and it will come. Right? And that's what the story of the Ramayana is the Hanuman, who is the Sasquatch leader, picked up the top of a mountain, and that's the story, and brought it to Lord Ram, and Lord Ram was equivalent to Lord Christ, and back in those days. So, there's a connection. There's connections there if you look for them.
Yeah.
But you're not going to find it if you only look at the Bible. You have to look across all of human history. They're sprinkled all over. Gilgamesh and Enkidu. Enkidu was hairy man, and he was seduced to become more human-like.
So, Mike, you discuss
sir.
You discuss the Sasquatch people with your students, and if you do, is there any interest? How do they react, or do you leave it out?
A lot of them think I'm nuts. Some of them have actually had some of them have had potential encounters, or at least in the district I'm in. It's Bollinger County, Missouri. So people can go on Google Earth and look up Bollinger County, Missouri, and see that it's 95% woods, with rolling hills and a lot of springs and creeks and things like that. Perfect habitat for anything that wants to live in the wild. And my school bus run will run probably about a good half the run is on county gravel roads, going through those areas, stuff like that, picking up kids here and there. And so I've got the pleasure of, they bring the subject up, and they know, a lot of them they'll joke with me about it. A lot of them will, we're just not buying it. We've hunted out here all of our lives. We hadn't seen anything. And I'd show them some pictures I've got on my phone, and they get kind of intrigued by it. And I tell them, I said, guys, I have personalized evidence in my county, Cape Girardeau County. I have personalized evidence in Madison County. Bollinger County is in between the two counties. I said, if they're in Cape County and they're in Madison County, I said, there's no reason they're not in Bollinger County. There's no reason they're not here too. And then I've had some students who come to me kind of privately, and I've had some. I think we might be having activity on our land. I think we might be having activity in our land. And one says, yes, because I saw one peeking in my window one night. And so we have had that, and then one young man, he actually rides the bus. I've got him in class and he rides the bus, and I drop him off at the bus and I tell him, I say, yeah, I said, Wes, I said, I guarantee you, I said, you could just sit outside your house at night and you can hear him. He looked at me, he says, yeah, he said, he goes, we hear him from time to time. That's all he said. We hear him from time to time. But the interesting thing, we've got two, I've got two in Cape County. I've interacted with two Missouri Department of Conservation agents that have acknowledged, yes, they're here. Now, privately, they've acknowledged that to me. The state stance is there's no such thing. But privately, they've acknowledged, yes, they're here. And be careful when you're camping out there, you know. And then I was talking to one of the students over in Boulder County, and he's like, well, I think it might be Sasquatch activities. My dad doesn't think it's Sasquatch activities, as my uncle does, and my uncle's a conservation agent over here. So, you know, the guys in the field know what's going on. They just can't talk about it publicly. But but yeah, that's so the students are kind of mixed on it. Some will buy into it. Some like to listen to the show and are getting into it, and some think I'm nuts. So,
you made an interesting point. Why do you think? I mean, I have my ideas, and I'm sure we all have our own different ideas about it. But why do you think that all these rangers and conservation agents and forestry people and whatever, why are they strongly advised not to talk about it? Why do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with, say Missouri, for instance, makes a lot of money off of the hunting and fishing industry and the tourism industry, and they're in those Ozark streams and the state parks down in there and stuff like that. And I think that, that acknowledgement would serve two purposes. There's a certain crowd that pays a lot of money into the state for those recreations that it will scare away. And then there's a certain crowd of rednecks that will go in, want to shoot the woods up and make for a dangerous situation for a lot of people. And I think they just keep quiet about it. That's my opinion. I don't have anything to base it on except for just trying to do some math on it.
I think you're absolutely right in your assessment. I know U.S. Forest Service, I worked with a lot. Okay. And there wasn't a forester out there that didn't have experience. You just don't take it back to the office.
Right.
Because, they don't want to hear about it. First of all, they don't want to have to take ownership of these beings because they know that, number one, that's going to open the biggest freaking pickle barrel ever created. Okay. You're going to have half the country lobbying to shut everything down off the road to preserve them. Okay. No, they don't care about preserving them. They just want everybody out of the woods except themselves. And and then you have the other half, like you say, going to be out there with every kind of rifle known to man trying to shoot one, and probably end up shooting themselves more than anything.
Right. And I'm going to tell you, over 90% of the hunters in the state of Missouri don't know they're out there.
That's right.
They hunt, they don't know they're out there. Because I go up there in my area during deer season. I observe that stuff coming out of the woods. They don't know they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
And the point I'm going to make on that, they'll put on Facebook every so often some of these groups, some of these Bigfoot Facebook pages, and they'll put on there the top 10 states for Bigfoot sightings, and Washington is number 1 in the U.S. Missouri is like number 8 or 9 or something like that. But they're going off the BFRO website report.
Right.
And I was just looking the other day. BFRO website report says Missouri has X amount of documented Class A, Class B Bigfoot sightings.
Mhm.
Washington State, several times more, leading the way. But I know for a fact, I go look at the three counties in question here: Cape Girardeau County, Bollinger County, Madison County, where I have interacted with in the last year pretty extensively when it comes to Bigfoot. Cape Girardeau County has one listing on that website. Bollinger County has one listing on that website. Madison County has one listing on that website.
Right.
I myself, in the last 3 years, have probably had 50 encounters, what they would call Class A or Class B, on the BFR website that are not documented on there.
Mhm.
I know of a dozen people that have had Class A's in Madison County that are not documented on there.
Is
You
it
know?
because they're talking about the woo or the stuff that's not like I saw across the road and length of its straw? Is it because they don't want to go there?
Moneymaker will give it a Class B if you just hear a vocalization. So and so heard tree knocks on the ridge. Class
Yeah.
B.
But if you say you saw one go, if you tell them that you saw one go invisible, they're not going to put that on there.
Well, yeah, it probably won't put that on there. But if the face-to-face ones, the ones where you see them, they'll put it as Class A. But like you said, if you see something like that, but what the point I'm making is there are probably nationwide multiple thousands of encounters that aren't even reported on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if that's the case for the three counties that I'm talking about, well, multiply that. Even what they got for the state of Washington is just scratching the surface what's actually going on in the state of Washington. Yeah. Because with the advent of all your Facebook pages in the last 10 years, people aren't even going to the BFRO anymore.
No.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Tater, half your face is cut off. Can you center your?
Oh. Sorry, I was
there. We
doing
go.
some stuff. Yeah.
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 So.
Oh, we got a comment from somebody that Thom and I know, Keith Bearden. He was wondering if you could tell the story of our first meeting, Daryl, in my area. I don't know. Says
if you could tell.
Keith Bearden says, Thom, can you tell the story of our first time meeting Daryl in my area? I don't know who Daryl is. The Sasquatch?
I think he means his teacher, but I'm not sure. But and I don't know the story well enough to relate it here, but he was with a group of people, Arla being one of them, his wife is another, when his teacher made himself known to him, had him step away from the rest of the group and conversed with him. And that happened in Georgia. I didn't know he had a name. That was one encounter there. Another one was when we had the two show up at our campfire. We're sitting there, 18 people sitting around a campfire in the evening. And the lady across the campfire from me, all of a sudden, her lips start quivering. She's trying to point. And I looked over my head behind me. There's two of us standing right behind me at the campfire. And it's like I say, 18 people there. It's kind of tough to deny all of them having seen a bear standing there, And one of them was a Georgia state judge. So if you want veracity, it's hard to beat that one. And so I don't know exactly what Keith knows what means there, but I think that was his teacher and how he met him. But that was pretty special.
How's his relationship going with them now? Where is he at now with that relationship?
He's severe health issues, heart problems. He's disabled.
Kind of been derailed a little bit, eh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Mike, have you been gifted by the Sasquatch, or have they left you things or stuff of that nature?
Not me in particular, because I'm usually not around long enough to receive the gifts. The areas I go, I'll go, if I go camp, it'll be for a night or two and then leave the area. My buddy Kyle, there at the farm in Madison County, we've talked about that situation a lot in the evening. He receives, they'll give him these rocks. We used to call them as kids. You find them in the creeks. They got the little crystal things looking on. We call them fool's gold when we were kids.
Mhm.
And he gets a lot of rocks like that left
Mhm.
for him. And
Mhm.
and it looks kind of cool, and they leave them for him, and
Oh,
and
they do.
and
Rocks are their thing for me too. There's times my jacket pocket doesn't get home 10 minutes after I do because it's so full of rocks.
I
Keith just corrected me. He says the park ranger, Daryl. Did you have some conversations with the park ranger called Daryl?
I didn't, but they did. And well, there was the time. What's his name? He used to have a radio show with Ma. At any rate, they
Midnight
were
Walker,
putting up
Midnight
some-
Walker guy.
Yeah, right, yeah. And they were putting up some sound recorders, and the park staff where we went there, one asked what they were doing. They were kind of unsure because they didn't know if what they were doing might be, illegal or something. So they said they're doing some research and they're recording night sounds. And these two park people started back in water. Well, we have some really strange things here that go on at night, and there's some really strange noises. You and it's no, we're Sasquatch researchers. Oh, then you know all about it. Yeah. But no, I don't. I do remember a conversation with Daryl, but it's been so many years, I don't recall what it was about, to be truthful with you. Unfortunately, my memory is like Swiss cheese, it's full of holes.
Brian, I'll share a gifting story with you. One of my students on the bus, we were talking. This is back in the fall. His family, they planted these walnut trees several years ago, and they just got to where this year the walnuts come to bearing a lot of good fruit off those trees. And he said his dad was planning on collecting the walnuts and selling them. He says those dang Bigfoots are cleaning out his walnuts.
Huh.
And he said and I actually found this too in the public area. They'll go up the hill and they'll find a big old pile of walnut shells. Just, big enough to fill 2, 3, 5-gallon buckets full of just shells. They go up there and they bang them on the rock. And I've actually seen that myself a couple of years ago over in the public area in North Cape County. But I said, well, they're taking all your weeds. No, he said, take about half the walnuts. He expected to have, twice the crop he had. They cleaned him out about half the walnuts. They left half the walnuts for us. Well, that goes under that sharing thing, as we talked about. But then I guess it wasn't too long after that, they had a turkey left on their front porch.
Mm-hmm.
A turkey that had its neck run. And it was left on their front porch. And so they were gifted a turkey in exchange for half a walnut harvest. I told the kid, I said, I like turkey a whole lot more than I do walnuts. I said, I'd take that trade in a minute.
I don't blame you.
I had an experience with turkey. I think it was American Thanksgiving. My wife's a U.S. citizen and I'm Canadian. And we decided we were going to leave turkey for the Sasquatch up here in my area. So she got a great big freezer bag full of turkey and I put it in a special place, hid it away. And the next day I just had this knowing, or it was a mind placement or telepathy, what mind speak, that's a form of mind speak. And I knew for a fact that either they had taken the turkey or they acknowledged the gift. It was one of the two. So I went back to the area where we had left the turkey, and right in front of the tree where we had placed it were two bouquets tied at the bottom of fern fronds, one for my wife and one for me.
Wow.
I've got a picture of that, but I won't bother showing it now.
Yeah.
I'd have to look for it. But anyway, it was they let me know they took it, and then they thanked both of us for the gift. So
Yeah.
you remember that, right, Thom?
Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to just backtrack a little bit, Mike. So initially you said as soon as you knew they were around, you would take off
Right.
out of the hills, and then you decided you were going to go back and just wait it out and see what happened. So how did the interaction change when you started doing that? What went on?
Well, it gradually worked up to it. We got to where we would go out, just go out at night, and build a fire. 2 or 3 of us, 4 of us sometimes sit around the fire, and that would just kind of attract them in. They kind of come in, and they'd let you know that they were in. They'd snap a stick,
Yeah.
give you an owl call, give you a whoop, give you toss a little pebble toward where you're
Yeah,
sitting.
yeah.
Different things like that. You're like, well, cool. And then that's when you gotta. I guess this is where the respect factor comes in. At this point, what do? Do we want to get up and go run into the woods after them? Or do we just stay put and kind of talk to them and interact with them? And that's kind of what I chose to do.
Yeah.
To do it that way, because I thought, well, if I go in there and run into them, interact with them, I may either one or two things: chase them off, or I'm challenging them, and I don't want to challenge them because I'm going to lose that battle. But they get curious, and so that's kind of how that came about, where we get the interactions and stuff like
So
that.
it just became more familiar and more out,
And then
outgoing with you, yeah.
when Bill when we decided, he and I decided to ditch the cameras and all the other stuff, ditch any technology, just be real primitive. That's when they would, once they would wait till we go into the tent. Once we would go into the tent for the night, then next thing you know, they're on the other side of the door of the tent.
Yeah.
We had a guy, one of Bill's buddies, we had a guy who did not believe. It was about a year ago, April. We were camping with all 3 of us were in the tent, and he didn't, he's just like, you guys are crazy, and well, it's about midnight and I'm asleep and I snore pretty good. Bill's asleep and he snores pretty good. And this guy's wide awake. And this one, maybe 2, probably at least one, then Sasquatch comes walking into the camp. And I awakened. When I awakened, he was already there. I heard it was like he just took a step on a little gravel drive where the truck was parked, just crunch. And that woke me up, and I heard those 2 crunches done, and I knew what I was hearing because I've heard it multiple times before. And I see this guy's already sitting up in his cot. He's on point, and he looks real nervous. And I really didn't know the guy. He was Bill's buddy, but he'd come in from Oklahoma, and so, and then the next step, we got a little tarp out there off the front door, and it had been raining. Next step was, that's the thing is, it had been raining, it was cloudy, so no moonlight, everything was just pitch dark. You couldn't see anything. Next step's on the tarp. So he is right outside the door. 2 steps on the tarp. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, say something to him, talk to him. And I'm like, I'm going to let him make one more move, and I'm going to say something to him. Well, the next move he made was off in the woods and gone. And this guy was sitting there the whole time. And I said, okay, that's the process. And Bill, the whole time Bill's over there snoring, he's sleeping. He never woke up. I said, what did you hear? He said, well, it started with 2 stick breaks. He goes, and then he come in. He goes, then he was messing with stuff in the back of Bill's truck. You can hear him tinkering around, moving things around. What's this? What's that? And then coming around the truck, took those steps in the gravel. That's when you woke up. That's when I woke up. And kind of, but then this guy, he's like, he knew it was something out there walking on two legs. He knew it wasn't a human being. And he knew with the noise it was making, crunching that gravel, there was pretty good size.
Mhm.
So he left a different person than what he was when he came.
Yeah. I remember one time Thom was up camping with my wife and I, and we were in our tent, and Sue heard this individual called Fortuna walking up from a slope up and behind our tent and walking right by the tent. Like I wear hearing aids, so I had them off. I didn't hear it.
Right.
But I have heard it on occasion, but not in this occasion. And he walked right by our tent, and then she also saw him return and walk by, but he also stopped for a while. And when he stopped, he was having a conversation with Thom. So did you want to relate some of that, Thom?
No, because I remember it, but I can't remember it well enough to relate it like that here. Yeah.
Well, you can give us the basics though, maybe not what he said.
No, go ahead. You remember it better than I do.
Well, I just know that he
just
stood in front of you.
remember it
I
happened.
don't remember much because it was your experience. I just remember you said he stood in front of you and had a conversation with you.
Oh
And
yeah,
I think he actually welcomed you to the area or something. Welcome or something, I believe.
after he came there. See, Fortuna came from Oklahoma as the husband of Raja, say, the daughter of a clan leader there.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that I'd gotten to meet him. He was actually over the bank. Is that the time you're talking about?
Yeah.
When he was standing on the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was actually over the bank, but high enough. We were about eyeball to eyeball. Because at that time he was over 10 feet tall, and it was just a youngster. And of course I haven't seen him now in several years, because I haven't been up there in that long. But yeah, that was quite an experience. So it was just basically a welcome, and thank you for watching my family. And this, and of course, was it the next year or the year after that, I was invited to watch the birth of his twins.
Yeah.
And he and Raja say had twins. And
He was taken there like, how do you describe that? Because I guess you were just taken to there.
it was remote viewing.
Yeah.
And 18 adult male Sasquatch, and two females. So Raja saying her mother was serving as the midwife for the birth. And I wasn't the only one there. Arla was there too. She was invited to that, because I'm sitting there when it's been delivered. And what they do then is they take them immediately to the creek and wash them, and then bring them back. And they went right back like they were still working delivery. And I was confused, what's going on? Then all of a sudden there's another one, and Arla's is twins. And then they took that one down to have it washed. It was almost like it was a royal birth. It was like they knew that there were going to be twins, and twins are very rare. Now I understand they have a new child too. That was 2015, so that's 8 years ago. So a couple new child be 2 years or a year old now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen evidence of that little guy.
Have you?
Yeah, I saw some big, well, I think it was him or maybe one of the twins, but I've seen like where I saw a big structure. And right in front of it was a tiny little one about 6 inches tall that was a replica of the big structure. And I just knew that the little guy was watching maybe Bud or one of the older individuals.
Or his
parents, yeah. Or his twins. Yeah, it could have been the twins, and the little guy was copying them, but it was so cute because it was like an exact replica of the big one. And you can just look at it and you just know what's going on.
Afternoon art class in the woods.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
you've got to figure out a way to come out here and go with Brian and our area up there.
Well,
because it is fantastic.
we're
But, you
going to
know-
call that's a bucket list, guys.
All
Well,
right.
you're welcome anytime. I always hold a gathering every year too. Or maybe you can come up to that. But you know, I deal with them, and we all deal with them differently. I very an energetic kind of relationship. Like they'll nudge me, and when I'm talking about them, and communicate with me like through forms of mind speak and stuff. Mostly thought placement and guidance and stuff like that. Sometimes words, but there's personality in all the different individuals, and you can actually tell who's connecting with you, at least for the 4 that I connect with, through their energy signature, right? And Fortune is actually, he's done a lot of interaction with me. Like I saw him cross the path and materialize out of thin air one time, and he showed me afterwards by leaving me a glyph that I just said, I wonder if he left a glyph. I looked down with a little headlamp on, and it pitch dark, and there it is right below me as I had the thought. So that kind of stuff. But what I'm getting at is this personality in all of the different individuals. But Fortune is, he doesn't let himself, he's very quiet. He does a lot of interaction, but with glyphs and different things, but he doesn't interact with me in the same way that Raja, say, the daughter, or little Bud, RE son, or RE in particular do. There he is right now. He just checked in. I can feel him. But you feel him, Thom? Do you feel him too?
No.
I do. But anyway, it's very interesting. There's like this personality and just their energy and stuff, and they're all like, they're just all people, right?
I think little Bud was a little afraid of me. He was so little when I first saw him.
He's not afraid of you now.
I'm sure he's not, but I think he was, because he was so young.
You know, this is so cute too. I had this lady, Mary, and you saw her videos and whatever I made with her, right, Thom?
Yes.
So, and she's a person, who can talk to them and actually talk to them and have a conversation with them and stuff, and she can see them in her mind's eye and all this kind of stuff. But I had her in the woods one time, and we were checking some stuff out. And as we're driving away, all of a sudden I see her look over somewhere, and all of a sudden she just starts weeping uncontrollably, like just like the emotion was just so powerful. And what she said is, little Bud was standing at the edge of the woods with a big shit-eating grin on his face, waving at her. Waving at her, and then she looked away, and he was still had the big grin on his face and waving at her, and it just like it just shattered her, the love and the magic of the situation.
Well, who was it used to do that with me up there? I think it was Raj. It was before she got married, before she took a mate. She used to do that. Every time we'd leave, when I was my last trip out, she'd be there somewhere along that last stretch between the horse corrals and the main gate. She'd be somewhere along there to wave goodbye. Yeah. And
that's what you said too, Mike. You said you saw one smiling or whatever, and I don't know if you said waving, but I remember you said something about smiling. So, they've got a lot of the attributes that we attribute to, the humanity or whatever, like it's some noble kind of thing or whatever, but they express more of those noble, honorable traits of what we describe as humanity than we do, really.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They definitely, they're much more respectful, more disciplined than what the human has become. I think those things are what I've observed, that they're.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Where do you want to go from here? What do you want to do next?
It's open. Yeah, you guys are open. You want to go somewhere, Thom?
Me or the show?
Mike, you?
No, I'm talking about you.
Oh,
what do you want to share? Yeah, what do you want to share, Mike?
I thought he meant like, where do I want to go with what I'm doing?
That's what I meant. Where do you want?
I want to.
I get you. Okay.
I want to
Well, it could have been either way, right? But you were literal, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get in touch with the clan over at Kyle's on a more personal basis, and
Mhm.
that's going to come just by spending some nights out there.
Sometime.
And the last time
yeah.
I spent the
Yeah.
night out there, I didn't even bring a tent with me. I just out there in the elements and
Mhm.
Mhm.
didn't. And of course, I'm a heavy sleeper too. I'm not a light sleeper, so but they they come in on a regular basis. I'm going to try to get out there a lot this summer and just kind of have some nighttime
Mhm.
overnight interactions and just
I think
observe,
that
just sit and observe, and people they find I'm doing as well. Make sure you take some good pictures. I said, I'm not even gonna have my camera. I just want to do this for me.
Mhm.
I don't want to do anything that's gonna hinder them off or think that I'm up to no good. I just want to do this for me. And
it
and
depends on what
and,
your intentions are with the camera too. Like
and
I always have a
initially,
camera, but I don't try to take a picture of them in
yeah. And then
particularly, but I document
the,
their, go ahead.
the other thing would be to help some of these people that, like the guy I had the conversation with just this past week, just to help them in the region process the things that are going on, the things they dealt with, and help them process it. Go back out with them and let them know it's kind of okay to do that. And
I think what you're trying to do, or what you're thinking of doing, going out solo by yourself, is exactly what they would want. That's when it's sort of like a test of mettle, trust, getting over fear, because they won't
yeah,
work with you beyond your fear barrier. And I know when I did that, I had all kinds of amazing things happen. I've seen them walking right around me in like predator form kind of stuff, where they're kind of transparent, but you can see them, and there's shimmery, watery kind of thing, and just like really intimate, magical interactions. And I think so what Thom was asking, would you like to have a relationship like sort of like what Thom has, or what some other people have? Is that your
well,
your
I don't. I'm not in a position where I could, you know, I could probably with my schedule get to where I'm going about once every 3 weeks or something like
Yeah.
that. So I'm really not. I really can't be there enough to have that close. But I just want to, I want to have as much as I can. I think the best chance is over there.
Yeah.
But I
Mike,
don't know, Thom.
I have a confession.
I-
Okay. I have a confession. I'm not really a big camper. I don't go in the woods. I think I've been into the woods intentionally to look for Sasquatch maybe once, twice. Okay. But I'm connected to the Sasquatch people in my being, in my house, and in my mind. And so from 2012 till now, it's been in the heart, or I know they're in the house, or they throw rocks at my window, or they make signs, and I have all the signs that you guys are talking about, stick lifts and all that kind of stuff. So I think this myth that you got to go out, that you absolutely got to go out in the woods, and that's where it's all happening, is a myth, because it, to me, okay, now imagine you have a friend. I have friends, right, that I haven't seen since high school, but they are definitely some of like my best friends.
Right.
And Sasquatch is connected to me in the same place that they are. I don't have to see them. I don't have to talk to them. If they come by, that's like, wow, that's really great. It's really special. And they know me and I know them. It's almost like a daily commune, sort of I just want to put that out on the table, because there's nothing that it's going to end up with you being connected to them in your heart anyway,
Yeah.
right? That's where it's going to end up. So that's where I would start.
Yeah,
Well, and they
I
can't.
agree with
I
that.
mean, yeah.
I agree with that. I was going out in the woods a lot. I still go out in the woods all the time, but I feel them mostly when I'm at home or when I'm doing the show. And so Mr. Beans is right. You don't have to be in the woods. Once they get that connection with you, that's how it works. But But I still think going out solo and whatever is still a test
Yeah.
of metal. They still want to
It's-
test your metal and whatever.
It's
So-
different for different people too.
And so, yeah, it is. It's
And
different for
we
everybody.
have to work within our constraints. I couldn't do it either till after I retired, after I was forced to retire, I should say. And then that gave me the time to be able to do the things I wanted to do, where I wanted to do them, when I wanted to do them. And it made all the difference in the world. You know, prior to retirement, I had written one book and spent 7 years trying to get it published. And after retiring, I wrote 14 more. Because I had the time. I had the time to go to Canada and visit this crazy white-haired kid that lived up there and see what was going on in our area there. I
Yeah.
couldn't have done that if I'd have been working a 9 to 5.
And you met quite a nice group of people up here, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I met people of my heart there.
Yeah.
And but then I was led to it too. My teacher from here led me there. That's where I was supposed to be. That was the work I was supposed to be doing. And that's why I got the gift of all gifts right there. Was because of
There you
that
go.
work. Yeah.
Golden eagle feather, yeah. Right in your house, right?
Yeah.
Left right in your house.
And actually in the tray, in the basket underneath the seat of my walker inside my room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom, what do you think
Yeah.
of like most of
Mhm.
my experiences with them when I've been out in the woods or whatever have happened during the daytime. So I think that's a little bit of a fallacy that some people say, well, you're only going to interact with them at night. I think that, I mean,
Right.
for me, you
Yeah,
can see
they're-
better what you're
they
doing in the
are-
daytime, and so why
Yeah.
not go out in the daytime? But I've had
I-
experiences both day and night.
I've had just a plethora of experiences of encounters, and very rarely at night because I'm not out at night. At night, yeah, I've had, we've had a lot of in the tent stuff. Sue and I had some great experiences before this white-haired guy took her away from me. But yeah,
More
But-
power to him.
yeah, more power to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but virtually all of my research is done in the daylight. If they
Yeah.
want, the key is, if they want to work with you, they will make it work with you, whatever you have to do, whatever they have to do to be with you. It's that simple. Michael, Oliver over there prefers to work from home and do it mentally. That's fine. That's great. It's a wonderful way to do it. They do that with me a lot here. Personally, I prefer the face-to-face in the woods, but I can't do that anymore. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Vern? Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
And
It's
so
not that I don't. I kind of long to see them and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
I kind of have this agreement. I have things that I do. I work on the internet and I help a lot of people with my
Mhm.
healing modalities and stuff. And it's just I'm just not set up in my headspace to go camping a lot. Plus,
Right.
we're in the flatlands of Georgia, so it's just like an 8-hour drive to get up to a mountain. Really,
Well, it's
So,
all.
so
it's
Mike,
20
Michael,
20
you in southern Georgia?
I'm in Savannah.
So, Savannah. Okay, you're over there, pretty part of the state over there by the coast.
Yeah, it's not. It's really nice. It's beautiful, beautiful trees, beautiful nature. I mean, I just from my house, I've seen raccoons and squirrels and birds and you name it. I've had a Sasquatch around. I've had a dog man down the street. So it's not like I'm missing anything. But this spiritual connection, it's going to end up a spiritual connection one way or the other, even if you see them all the time,
Mhm.
because we're all connected and we're all
Yeah, it's still going to come down to
spirit beings.
Yeah. Have they ever, have they
Love
been
is
introducing-
invisible. I'll put that out there. Love is invisible.
Yeah.
Right. Have they, great. Have they, been introducing any of that stuff to you that people will call the woo or whatever? Have you experienced any of that so far? And you've only been in this for like 3 or 4 years, right?
You talking to me or
Well,
Harold?
yeah. You. No,
Oh.
no, I know Mike has. Michael
Oh.
has.
So what do you mean by the wool?
Well, like
Uh,
mind speak or like guidance or zap, they're just
I know
the stuff that people-
I have not experienced that firsthand. A buddy that has gone out with me, researched with me a lot. He had in that same area, that same conservation area. He had interactions with them about 20 years ago, when he was up there a lot mountain biking, and he'd been zapped. He had mind speak. Conversations with him. They hadn't been nice with him or anything like that. And so anyway, he for 20 years just shunned it. Never went, and anyway, I met up with him, got involved with him, and I said, if I wanted to get started going, would you go back and do this with me? He said, well, I need to, because I need to go back and work through some things and stuff like that. When he started, I thought he was crazy. I thought he was nuts. I had that Rick Taylor approach. You mean, no, they're not. But then the more talking to Thom, getting people on my program, and these people are sincere people, and they're talking about this. And then I thought, well, I've got to try to find a rational explanation for everything before I buy into it. Then you go back to reading, use the Bible as a source, use other sources of the Bible. They deal with mind speak in the Bible. They deal with things like that, to where it's something that can. It's something that can definitely it's out there. People, I haven't experienced it yet. I might, and actually, somebody told me that I talked to you recently. Take the approach with them that start just in your mind saying things to them rather than doing verbalizing. See what comes back to you. And so that's an approach I'm going to try. So
yeah,
anyway.
Our whole consciousness is based on Wi-Fi. Okay, everything we do is Wi-Fi, which is like mind speak. You cannot do this, what I'm doing right now, without having an impulse of your mind showing this picture of yourself doing that. And if you want to change it,
right.
That's all Wi-Fi. That's not. I'm not saying right hand lift up, right hand lift down, right hand twist. It's not doing that. It's all Wi-Fi. And so we're actually 100% mind speak all the time. It's just that we don't pay attention to the subtler things or the outside things. We're just walking along, making our sandwiches and living our life.
Yeah.
We don't know that that's mind speak or that's paranormal.
And a lot of it is you just be in tune to what's being said to you in the spirit and things like that. And sometimes, so.
And once in a while we go, somebody will call us on the phone and we know who it is. That's mind speak. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I come to the okay, it's a real thing. And so I haven't experienced it with the Sasquatch folks at this point, but it is something that I'm much more open to, because like I said, my camp was a few years ago. These people are nuts that are saying that, but then the more I talk to people, the more I'm out there, the more there's a whole lot more going on with the Sasquatch than what we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife is like that all the time. She's constantly got in her head exactly what I'm going to say before I say it. Like just yesterday, something about popcorn. I said, hey, will you make us some popcorn for the game? And she had the word popcorn in her head just before I said it. So, I mean, people have the ability to, like Thom said. So it is a real thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that everybody who's interested in Sasquatch, right? Everybody who's a researcher, everybody who watches the videos, everybody, that urge, that pull, that interest in the Sasquatch is a mind placement, is a thought placement, or is a poke in the feelings.
Yeah.
So to me, everybody who's engaged, the 100,000 people who are in this group and the 20,000 in that group, they're all in contact with a Sasquatch. But like I said, it's so natural. Like I don't call that mind speak. That's just natural, right? Well, to them, being investigating or fanatics or whatever you want to call us, it feels natural. It doesn't feel like there's something paranormal happening, and yet they're out there walking in the woods or they're writing books or, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? To me, that's the whole thing is paranormal.
Yeah. I personally think, Mike, that they're guiding you right now because you're doing this show, your show on, not this show. Well, yeah, this show as well, but you're doing your show on them. And I
Right.
think that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And they're aware of it.
Yeah.
And they're guiding you in some way you may not realize, but that's what I think. What do you think, Thom? Peter, Thom?
I really agree. I think they're in charge.
Well,
In the background, but in charge.
yeah. And that's what I'm
Large and
trying
in
to do.
charge.
I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to share that with others. And that's all part of the process. So.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel driven to do your show? Like, in a way, or do you feel
The people drive me to do it because there are times I think that I got too much going on. I don't really have time to do this. I don't run a set schedule with it. I try to get out about 3 shows a month, 2-3 shows a month these days. But the and every time I think, I think I'm just, because I mean, don't make any money at it. It takes time to do it. I don't think I ever quit going out trying to get the experiences and dealing with them. But then everybody says, I always have somebody say, no, you need to keep doing your show because because your show is genuine. Just like this format here, it's genuine. It's a genuine format where you have people sharing what they know, what they learn, what they experience. And most of them aren't like that,
yeah.
And so you get that encouragement. You say, okay, I'll do more shows.
Why is it important to you? And I know it is. Why is it important to you to do a show where you represent them in a fair manner? Because I know that you're more on the side of they're benevolent,
Right.
malevolent. So why is it more important to you to represent them like that than these popular shows where they say, "Oh, I was escaped with my life from a monster, that was chasing me"?
Well,
why is it important to you to be like you are and do the show your way?
Because early on, my good friend Bill, who we've camped many nights together and had many experiences together, when we first started this, and he's on one of my early shows, and the show is titled "Taunted and Greeted" in Southeast Missouri. He decided he was going to camp, and the rest of us were chicken. He says, I'm gonna camp. I'm gonna go up here. I'm gonna camp for 3 nights. He says, come out and camp with me. I'm not camping out up there. I know what runs around those woods at night. 2 or 3 of us, nope, you're on your own. And so then we got this. So he's up there on a Wednesday night, start things out with. It was summertime. I was out of school. And then I told one of my buddies, I said, well, I don't have anything going Thursday night. I said, let's go see him Thursday evening. But I'm not spending the night, but we'll go out and visit with him. Well, he didn't last the Thursday evening. He got out of there first thing Thursday morning because Sasquatches came into his camp and they scared him. Now, they weren't necessarily aggressive with him, but just the whole shock and fright that I got two of these things right here in the camp, and my tent is here, and there's nothing but me and them, and they're messing with my truck, and they're hoofing at me and growl, the grunts, and he took that for being aggressive. Which, if you don't know any better, thing's 9 foot tall and it's grunting out there. He's got to be mad at me, right? That's what he's thinking. So he pulls his, about 4 o'clock in the morning. He pulls his 45 out, and he fires 5 rounds into the air, right above this thing's head. Pow, 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 pow. And he said, and the Sasquatch took off. But he said, the whole woods just lit up with Bigfoot's yelling, screaming all different directions. Just like a, and just, he goes, it went off about 15 to 20 seconds. He goes, and they just quit. And he says, the next 2 hours, I just sat there in the middle of my tent, clutching my gun, shivering until the sun come up. And I packed everything up, get out of there. And his description was they were angry Sasquatch. And I went to the area the next day, and of course I saw where the thing was standing when he planted his foot in the ground and kicked the grass up and went into the woods. You can see that 16, 17-inch foot. But to help him process that, I said, no, it wasn't that they were angry. I said, your frightened reaction was on something you weren't expecting. I said, but never once did they threaten you. They didn't throw logs at your tent. They didn't come in and tear the tent up to try to get after you or anything like that. They're just messing around out there. I said, and it scared you. And if I would have scared me at that point as well, it would have frightened me at that point as well. And he's like, I'm never going back out there and doing that again. I'm never going back out there and doing that again. And sure enough, he went back out and did it again. And it was about his 3rd or 4th time camping. But it was about his 3rd or 4th time doing it that I thought, they're not killing him. I'll go camp with him. Then I'll go camp with him. But the thing is, we've had some of the neatest interactions since then tonight with him. But that first one, was, and that's kind of where I decided to kind of take my direction of the show a different direction, that they're not monsters out to get you. Now, occasionally I'll have somebody on that's had the aggressive encounter. Some people do have aggressive encounters. But
could it be open to interpretation?
It could be open to interpretation. It could be open to interpretation, like Bill's. Like that, yeah. When we revisit that, I said that really wasn't aggressive. They were not aggressive with you. Your reaction was one that created an aggressive situation. And they left you alone after that point. We're not going back in there and getting shot. We scared him too much. They left you alone. Now my son had an aggressive encounter one morning when he was going to a new spot to go hunting, where he was a typical young man. He was like, well, I see one of these things out here, I'll shoot him, blah, 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 blah. I said, you better not.
Well, they would have known that intention, for one thing. Yeah.
I said, you have more to bargain, more than what you're bargaining for. If that's your intention, you go up there hunting and he said, Dad, he says, I've got a new spot I'm going this morning in the morning. He says it's going to be set, that one spot we're at, it's going to be about 150 yards down the ridge. I think it's a real good spot. And I said, well, come by and get me. I'll go out there with you. And he says, well, he said he thought his wife might go out with him that morning. I said, well, 4 o'clock, 4:30, she's not going to get out of bed. I said, he lived about a mile from me at the time. I said, just come over to the house. I said, I'll be ready to go in 15 minutes. Well, about 5:45 that morning, I had to get up and let the dogs out to go to the bathroom. my phone dings. I says a text message. I don't have my glasses on. I guess he's texting me saying he's on his way over. Well, he's late. He should have been here by now. We should already been headed up to the woods. And so I better go get dressed. And then I ignored the text. And then about another 5 minutes later, my phone's ringing. It's him. I picked the phone up. I said, where are you at? I said, what's taking? He says, and he's breathing real heavy. And I can tell he's frightened. He says, I'm up here in the field. He said, I just been chased out of the woods. I said, what chased you out of the woods? He goes, you know what chased me out of the woods. I said, why are you up in the woods without me? I said, I told you to come over and get me. Well, I didn't. He says, no, because I'm out here in this field. Because I don't know what to do. I said, why don't you come home? I said, we'll talk about it. We'll go back up there and take a look. But the thing is, whatever, as he was going into the woods at that point, obviously the Sasquatch, probably two of them were there. I guess it was two. And based on his description, he didn't see it. He had a little flashlight. He could never get a visual. There was a bluff charge, and it was some growling and some tree breaking. But I've told him they will let you leave. If they don't want you there, they let you leave. Just leave. Just walk. Don't shoot. Just leave. Don't shoot unless it's a matter of pure life or death. Just walk and just shoot. He had his rifle with him. He didn't shoot. He left. And as soon as he got to the field, they left him alone. And when we went back to the area, of course, there's a game trail, and then there's some arch trees arching over that game trail, and it looked like a little area that could have been possibly their hunting area, not his hunting area. And I did see about a 19-inch, couple 19-inch tracks in the area. And I kind of explained to him, I said, you see these little arches over these game trails like that? I said, hunt somewhere else. I said, try not to get in the woods too early. I said, let the, be more toward daylight. I said, if you're going to hunt up here, I said, because they're up here. And then he just kind of shake his head. He goes, I don't see how you're not afraid of them. I said, well, I've done this enough. I said, I just and then he there once in a while he'd call and he'd say, hey, he says, I'm going to go hunt this area. He says, but I really don't want to be there by myself. And I'm coming out of the woods. Will you go with me? I said, yeah, I'll go with you. He says, because I know you're not afraid of these guys. But
we had a question from, sorry, we had a question from Teddy Drusp, but I get the impression because he phrased the question, I think, before you were talking about this last guy, but maybe you'll understand who he's talking about. He says, Michael Scott, did your friend ever figure out why he'd had so much trouble with Sasquatch?
I don't know. I think he may have been talking about the guy I talked to about the 20 years ago deal where he would have negative interactions with him.
I think that's the guy, yeah.
And I just think he was just a little young and a little arrogant back then, and he just wanted to, argue with him. I don't know. Yeah. So
I always want to make one thing clear too, that you can get in a place where you're not wanted. I mean, there's things going on. There may be youngsters there, and they're going to be very protective of youngsters, and they may not want you there, and they'll, they don't want you there. There's no doubt about that. I don't consider that aggression. I'm in their house. If they don't want me to use the bathroom, I'll go outside. That's all right.
You're right, Tom. He took it that way, but many times that he would be hunting up there, and he would hear all of a sudden about 75 yards up the ridge, he'd hear whoop. You get up and leave. I said he's not telling you to get up and leave with that. He's just telling you that, hey, he's telling somebody else there's a hunter down there, and he may be telling you that I'm up here. But kind of way. I said there is a difference between the two. And the one was directly you need to leave this area, and he left it. I said, my goodness. I said, I'm so glad. I said, you actually listened to my advice on something. I said, that was very beneficial to you.
I've never had any real negative experiences with them, but one time I did go in and I just got the message, strong feeling, telepathy message. There's nothing going on here today. May as well leave.
Yeah.
But usually they're very welcoming.
Yeah.
But but sometimes they have sensitive areas or there's something going on that, they don't want you to be around or something. So, I mean, that, they have lives and they do stuff like anybody else.
Yeah.
To be a,
And
to be a
We don't
baby
want
in the area
we
or
don't want
something.
company today.
That's right.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Like there's nothing going on. You may as well leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
in your area, Brian, they could be off on somewhere else getting food too. And they're just telling you.
It could have been
"We're not
that. It
around
could have been
today."
that. It could have been that.
'Cause
Yeah.
you know how they do that. There's low tide, they're down on the beaches. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your favorite story from up in my area, Tom? Your favorite experience? Do you want to share something for
Oh my
Mike and
heavens.
I know there's so many.
Okay. Probably my visit with Raja say. That was you and I and Sue, and that was before you got married.
Randy Brisson and Zoli
Randy
and Ingrid.
Zoli and Ingrid, yeah. We're all out for the day. And it's raining. Oh, it's raining. As only British Columbia can rain. And I got the message that she wanted to talk to me and where she wanted me to wait to meet her. But she couldn't do it with the whole crew around. Well, you guys got the idea to go on this particular trail. It's the one she wanted me on. And she told me where to wait. And we got there and it started up a hill and I was using my walker. And I said, you guys go ahead. I just have to wait here. And I'll be here when you get back. Well, nobody wanted to leave me there alone.
Yeah. You had to coax this quite. Get the hell out.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, basically I had to kick bottom to get you to go,
Yeah.
Because I knew she wanted to meet me there, but I wasn't supposed to say anything. Well, finally, you guys, matter of fact, I got a picture of all of us there together. And finally, you guys took off and left me there. There's a great big fir tree right next to the trail. So I got under that, stayed as dry as I could. And you guys were no more than out of sight. And I looked up and there she is standing there. And we had quite a conversation for a few minutes. And what you guys weren't gone all that long. But then she says, it's time for me to go now. And she just walked this big rock, huge rock there. She walked behind that rock. That was the last I saw of her. And but she was telling me about her trip to Oklahoma. So it was after that, because Fortune was there then. And but she was told me about the trip to Oklahoma and how they did that and why they did it. And then
well, keep the gene pool strong for one thing, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to be, they have to go outside of the territory
that way. Yeah. And the
And
funny thing is,
oh, go ahead.
the funny thing is, I was talking to Arla about that sometime later, and I started to describe her. She says, I saw her when she was here. Well, I knew Forstner was from Arla's area in Oklahoma and in the southeastern area, south of Tulsa, and but I didn't know exactly where. Well, it turns out that Forstner's father was the big guy that she saw that followed her when we were there for the conference in Honolulu. And he's like 15 feet tall. He's huge. And the whole group, we were staying in some cabins there, and she was walking this trail and he was walking behind her. And the whole group saw him, told her that that he was following. She said, "Oh yeah, I knew that and knew who it was." Well, then said she saw Raj when she was there. She was just a second. She went and got her notes, her journal, and opened up. She read it back to me, and it was verbatim the description that I had. Because Raj is very, very unique. First of all, she's the only one I've ever seen that had blue eyes, and also she had a unique haircut. That's she's more round-headed than most of them are, and her hair is cut like a flat top, and it looks like it's been styled. So she's very unique to see. And Ma had seen her and had recorded her being there, and that was when she went there to meet meet Portia before they were mated. Yeah, very
We got
special.
we got a question from Teddy Dress, directed to Thom. Says, Thom Cantrall, why do you think she chose to tell you this in person instead of mind speak?
Well, just because we did often speak in person to the clan there. Sometimes I have had mind speak with her, so I can't say never, but I've had more face-to-face time with her than I have had mind speak. Of course, I've had both also. Ari, I've had only mind speak. I've never spoken to him face to face. And my teacher, Echinacea, I'd say probably it's 15% vocal and 85% mind speak. Yeah. And yeah, he still does that to me here, even though I'm retired, and he's allowing me to be retired. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, sounds good.
Mhm.
So do you want to
Hey
talk
guys,
about something?
I'm gonna have to run here in a minute.
Okay.
But I do appreciate you having me on here, and it's been some great conversation and even a learning curve for me, but I do appreciate it.
And I'll tell you one thing about Mike's show. If you haven't watched it, watch it, because he's got two of the cutest co-hosts you've ever seen. Okay. It makes it all right to be able to watch him, because
What, cuter than me and Mr. Beans?
Slightly.
I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for coming on too, and I think you're doing good work, and you're really a valuable resource in the Bigfoot Sasquatch world.
Well, thank you very much. The co-hosts, I tell them, I said, I have the co-hosts on for the ratings and I get the guess. But
there you go.
Whatever. But when I first started doing the program, and I just shared it, I thought, and Susan Perez directs the SEMO Bigfoot Encrypted Research page. She admins and moderates that. And I thought she would be a good person to get as a co-host, because you know how it is, like the TV news, you got a male and a female. You want to attract both audiences.
That's
you know. So I asked Susan if she'd come in and co-host this, and then my sister Becky, who we did a show with, on her sighting, and then Becky comes in, and sometimes Susan can't make it, Becky fills in, and sometimes they're both on, sometimes Becky can't make it, Susan's on. So anyway, that's those two, and seems like they get more positive comments on Susan and Becky than I get on me, but then they like the guests we get in, and I'm going to get the guests.
That's right.
And can I ask you the one question we asked just about every guest we had, and then we can wrap up? So how has your life changed since you were introduced to the Sasquatch people, or has it changed?
Well, it's changed because, well, first of all, it opens you up to what else is out there, for one thing, as far as even other things. But it's put me on a quest to try to just, and people, my wife would tell me, you might be getting a little bit too heavy into this stuff, but because she doesn't share the hobby. But that's okay. But it's like, yeah, but I can't help it. Because
Mhm.
every time I turn over a rock, there are more rocks to be turned over.
Beautiful, yeah.
And it just
60
it just keeps me wanting to find out more and find out more.
I've had 65 years of rock turning. It never
Yeah,
stops.
it never stops.
Mhm.
Yeah. Likewise, I'd say the same
Mhm.
thing exactly.
So
Yeah.
anyway, it just kind of if I go 3 weeks and I'm not out there hunting down some interactions of some kind, I start getting jittery. I need to get back out there and see what's going on. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Birds
Well-
to merge.
Next week, we got Barb Shoop's camp. I'll be there too.
Yeah. I'll be there in June
right.
and July. So I guess I'll see you, Tom, there.
Mhm.
It'll be the Tot and Tater reunion.
Yeah, there we go. They're waiting for that.
Okay, Mike.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so
you
much.
guys. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for
Thank you.
coming on. We really
Mhm.
appreciated you coming on, and
All right.
great conversation all around. Thank you,
All
Tom,
right.
for coming on too. So on behalf
Yeah.
of Port Cunningham and the world's handsomest man, Frank Oliver Beans, this has been the Pork and Bean Show. Thanks again to Mike and Tom, and we will see you soon with another show. Let me just check and see what that is quickly. Our next show is May 19th with Pat McRae, and that'll be an interesting show.
Mhm.
And so please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Sasquatch BC, The True Story. And I've got 625 videos on there currently, including every
Wow.
Pork and Beans episode that we've done over the last 3.5 or 4 years. And like and subscribe to our Facebook group, The Pork and Beans Show. So thanks everybody for watching.
Bye.
We appreciate you all. See you
Hey,
later.
everybody.